Hello, my name's Andrew Martin. I'm a writer and I've written a book about this stuff, moquette. Moquette is a French word for carpet, and it's the characteristic seat covering of London transport, and we're very lucky to have it. Why do we have it? Well, one reason is that it's got a pile, little tufts that stick up and they hold you into your seat. That's necessary in London, or in a lot of London, because the tubes follow, in parts of London, a medieval street pattern, and they squirm about, and you'd be squirming about too, were it not for moquette, which holds you into your seat. Early on, in the very early 20th century, we didn't have moquette. Certainly not on the top deck of a bus, because there's no roof. It would get rained on. People like to sit on the top deck because of the view, and they would put up with the rain, they just have an umbrella. Here's a slightly later bus than the previous one. This is the B type, 1909. On the top deck, still no moquette because of the rain. But on the bottom deck, this one does have moquette. And it's a dark colour, it's kind of very gloomy, black and dark red. A lot of early moquettes were dark colours, so they wouldn't show the dirt, and people were dirtier back then. You had chimney sweeps wandering around and people like that. A lot of early moquettes actually were brown. You don't see brown colours on bus and tube interiors anymore, and I think that's a shame. It's a good colour for transport. This is a 1938 stock tube train. The 1938s were the classics of the underground, and a whole series of maquettes was commissioned for them, often from leading designers of the time, and the maquettes were characteristically red and green. Why? Because Frank Pick, head of design at London Transport for the 1938 trains, considered green to be a soothing colour, restful, reminiscent of the countryside, and red symbolised the town. So it was making a symbolic statement about how the tube connects to the town and the country. What the tube really did, though, was create the suburbs. Not so much red and green as more like grey. And Frank Pick didn't like that idea. And he left London Transport in 1939 a disappointed man. He regretted that the tube had made London too big and created the suburbs. But his ideal, the town and the country, is represented in the green and red maquettes of the 1938 tube trains. I like this moquette. It's shown here on a Q-stock district line train, but it got everywhere. It was very widely used. It was used on the first Victoria line trains in the late 60s. I used to live in Leytonstone, and I'd come back in the evening, and I would, especially after a couple of drinks, I'd stare at this moquette for a long time, trying to work out the pattern, which is called the repeat. It's a complicated pattern, you can't quite see how it works. And what I liked about this moquette was it reminded me of the coal fire in the late stages of combustion. The black coal, grey ash, and a little spot of red, the dying embers as it were. This moquette, like most of the moquette, was woven in Halifax. There used to be placards in tube trains saying, "All moquette in this carriage made in Halifax, Yorkshire." And this particular moquette was woven by a firm in Halifax called Holdsworth, a family firm, and I talked to one of the brothers from Holdsworth, and he said it was the first moquette that he'd worked on when he was learning his weaving trade in the 60s, and he called it the post office moquette, because he liked that touch of red. He said it had a spot of post office red in it. I think that's what makes it such an intriguing moquette. This is the Routemaster bus from 1959 on. For the next few decades it was the London bus. It has an interior which is again cosy, but also nice greens and reds, again very restful. I always think of the Routemaster as being like a kind of pub on the move, with the conductor as the publican. And it had a really nice moquette, designed by the designer of the bus, Douglas Scott, and he put this yellow or gold stripe into the moquette, and this is woven in such a way that it would be very durable and strong, so however worn the moquette became, this gold stripe would remain strong. And when this bus was first unveiled in 1959, a kind of vox pop was done, you can see the newsreel film of it. One woman says, "Well, it's just like being at home, really." Come up to date, here is the design of the most widespread current moquette. This is a pair of socks. They're not actually made of the moquette, but they show the design. You wouldn't want to wear a pair of socks made of moquette. This design is called Barman. And if you want to know why it's called Barman, and if you want to know the logic behind the design, you should read my book, Seats of London, which is all about the history of moquette. And so you'll know what you're sitting on, and you'll know what your parents and your grandparents were sitting on as well, because it goes back to the very earliest days of moquette. Available here in the London Transport Museum bookshop, along with these socks and lots of products that actually are made of moquettes. Sofas and cushions and things like that. Thanks for watching.